Xi and tell China, not on my watch. Will you continue to spy on our kids, buy our farmlands, and steal our intellectual property just to compete against us? It's wrong. It is not the strength of President Xi. It is the weakness of President Biden that is the problem with China. And if we are going to restore hope in this nation, we have to focus on the fact that every parent in every zip code deserves quality education options for their kids. Today on the Faulkner Focus, my mother, Frances Scott, thank you. Only 3 of y'all saw her, so I'm going to talk to these 3 right over here. I'll be back in a minute. Just joking. Literally, there's a mama whom I love desperately. When I was a kid growing up, I grew up in a single-parent household. My mother worked 16-hour days because she believed that if she had the ability to go to work and support her family, it was her responsibility. She taught me that as a nurse's aide, she changed bedpans and rolled patients. It was not a glorious job, but she took pride in helping people. She took pride in going to work. She's the reason why I understand that a person who works is a person who restores their own dignity. There is dignity in all work. It's one of the reasons why I said at the end of the debate, I've said it in TV commercials, if you are able-bodied in America, you work. Period. My mama also taught me, if you take out a loan, you pay it back. Exactly. And if you commit a violent crime, you go to jail. Period. Do the crime, you do the time. Now, my mother was a wise woman. My brother was a good kid. How many of y'all know that not all kids are good? I was the bad one, yes. By the time I was a freshman in high school, my parents divorced when I was 7. My mother was working those long hours. I thought I had an excuse to not succeed. I thought the weight of the world was on my shoulders. I thought I could play around in school, run track, play football, and get my way through. I had a lovely little teacher. She was about 4'11", named Mrs. Lynch. I came to her at the end of my freshman year, and I said, Mrs. Lynch, I know I'm failing your class, but I promise I'll do better next year. She says, you'll do better next year in my class. So, imagine, somebody say amen. Thank God for the teachers. Thank God for good teachers. I will say, teachers' unions are bad. Teachers are good. But, imagine, if you will, the salesman that I once became was not yet developed at that time. And I failed that class. I also failed 3 other classes that year. My running joke is when you fail Spanish and English, no one calls you bilingual. No one. But they will all call you by ignorant because you can't speak in any language. That's where I found my unhappy self. My mother would go to work and she'd come home. She'd look at my report card. She looked at me, looked back at my report card, and all through my freshman year, she would say, sweetheart, kneel down to my bed, to my side, and she'd say, sweetheart, if you would just shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll be among the stars. So sweet. Such an encouraging woman she was. And then in my freshman year, she is. Well, back in those days, she was, because the story changes in a second. She came home at the end of my freshman year, walked in my room about 11:30 at night. I knew what she was going to say. Sweetheart, you should have shot for the moon. But she said, no, you missed that lesson. So she walked me outside. I know this is New Hampshire. You probably don't do this in New Hampshire, but she walked me outside to a tree. She said, please pick a branch. I picked a branch. So some of y'all are from the South. Okay, very good. So she introduced me to a new form of encouragement. I will say a switch is a Southern apparatus of encouragement. She applied it liberally. It was the last subject I failed for the rest of my life. I thank God for that lesson. But if we are going to arm parents with options, we are arming the kids with the brightest future. If we take seriously, I just came out with a plan called Empower Parents, Protect Kids. I believe we have to put parents back in charge of education. Parents need to have access to the curriculum that their kids are being taught. We need our kids to be educated, not indoctrinated. We need to get back to the ABCs, not the CRT. We've got a lot of work to do in public education. If we introduce competition, I believe the price will go down and the quality will go up. Giving a mom like mine, I went to 4 different elementary schools by the 4th grade. Giving a mother like mine options will bring her temperature and her blood pressure down and bring her kids' test scores up. Let's unleash the talent in the next generation by making sure that their parents have choice so kids have a chance. If we are going to create opportunities in this nation, I think we have to focus our attention on the goose that lays the golden eggs. It is our economy. Our free market economy is the marvel of the world. Unfortunately, under Joe Biden, we have seen a dismal performance all across our country. 16% inflation that led to 12 increases from the Federal Reserve that makes a house almost unaffordable for first-time home buyers. We will tackle that problem by turning the spigot off. We're not going to print what we don't need, and we're not going to spend what we don't have. Trillions of dollars printed and spent that we did not need. We have to have a balanced budget amendment in Washington to keep Washington from spending your money. Now, I only have about 42 more minutes to go in my speech. Just kidding. I want to say this. Thank you. Thank you for coming out and hanging out with me on a very bright, mild New Hampshire day. I appreciate the weather that y'all brought from South Carolina. The humidity is a little low, by the way, so thank you for not bringing the humidity with you. So those are all the jokes I have on the weather. I look forward to answering your questions. What we'll do is we'll start with Scott, microphone. We'll start moving around, and I'll simply say this. I'll answer any question you have except for the ones I don't like. So thank you very much.
All right, give it up for Senator Scott. Thank you, Senator. Well, as a point of personal privilege, I'll take the first one. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
Cool. So, as you know, the southern border is wide open, and the governor will tell you that our border patrol agents are down south, and we have very little coverage. We do have a northern border. There are illegals coming in. There's drugs. There's people that we just don't want here. Will you pledge today that you will help the governor, help the people in New Hampshire secure our northern border, as well as close that southern border, stop the damn fentanyl, and protect our families and kids?
Yes. Short answer, yes. The governor, we were talking about those from the administration that made promises to your governor, and they could not be found to fulfill those promises. I operate on a promise made, it's a promise kept.
Thank you. I'm going to go here. Then I have a couple of questions over here. I saw. Just raise your hand. I see you. Okay.
Hi, Senator. Thanks for being here. My name's Lois from Nashua. Following up on Scott's question, what, practically speaking, can a president do for the illegals that are here and draining our budgets?
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Thank you for the question. The question is, what can a president do as it relates to the illegal immigrants who are in the country already? A couple things that you can do. Number one, recognize the overall cost of illegal immigration to this country over a 10-year window is about $2 trillion. Devastating amounts of money. But at some point, many of the illegal immigrants who are here will run into law enforcement. We can deport them. They will have some interaction with the government. We need to first, in my opinion, eliminate sanctuary cities. We need to use the resources of the federal government that those cities get, take it away in pursuit. Eliminating that funding will force them into eliminating their sanctuary cities. What we've seen across the country now, a lot of the big blue cities who were sanctuary cities are now complaining about illegal immigrants coming to the cities. Stunning manifestation there called reality setting in there. It's when the illegal immigrant has the interaction with some part of the government that we have an opportunity for deportation.
The rest of them are still expensive.
They're all expensive, but have not found a way so far to gather up 16 million people and or even to find where they are.
Can't
So
you just say no food, no bed, no medicine?
you could think that you could say that. The challenge that I have with that is, no, you can say it. The challenge that I have with it is finding where people are in order to actually have an opportunity to do so.
Senator, I'm to your right. That's your left. I'm over here.
I've already seen you to my left, Scott, so I was surprised to see you to my right.
Thank you, Senator.
Hey, you told me to punch back, so I'm punching you back first, though. Bing.
I didn't vote for Barack Obama, but frankly, from my position, I thought that the man would get in there and turn the corner on racism before he decided he was going to suddenly fundamentally change America. I view you as the person to reverse that.
We should give him an applause. I agree with him so far. Let us continue.
How do we do that?
Well, a couple things. Number one, the biggest difference is, the higher my numbers go, the more people show up at my events, the more the radical left come out to attack me. President Obama joined the chorus a few weeks ago as well. Here's what I believe. I believe that socialism does not work, period. The problem with the radical left is that they have consistently, when they're having a losing proposition, they weaponize race or class in order to hold on to their power. The people who've lost the most under this supermajority in big blue areas of the country have been poor people and minorities. What works, free markets, capitalism, works really well. Where we haven't seen it present are in those big blue Democrat-dominated areas. We've seen the highest crime, the highest unemployment, and the lowest levels of hope in the nation. Turning that around requires new leadership. Joe Biden won't do it, and President Obama didn't do it. And so here's the plan to get it done. There is no such thing as a black poverty or white poverty. There's just poverty. There's not black kids' issues or white kids' issues. There are just kids' issues. Our system of free markets work for everybody. I started off, this is why my candidacy is so dangerous to the radical left. The truth of my life disproves their lies. I was not born with a silver spoon, mine was plastic. Growing up in poverty in that single-parent household that I described earlier, going to work 30 hours a week while I was in high school, taught me valuable lessons of hard work and grit. It taught me that even though some of my friends that I grew up with were shot, buried, or locked up, that the harder I worked, the luckier I got. I am so thankful that we live in a nation where the color of your skin does not determine the outcome of your life. But I will say, the quality of your education will. In order to right the ship, we have to stop telling kids that the only way to succeed in life is to get a college degree. You can have, exactly, say it again, he's smarter than half the politicians in Washington.
You can go to trade school.
My running mate. You can qualify for the Constitution, you're running, young man. Some of y'all looking around the audience, y'all are too young to remember these days, but back in my days, we had something called SHOP in high school. Anybody remember SHOP?
Yeah, I took home ec.
Why can't we teach people, give kids in all communities, sir, why not give kids a dual track? Pick a track, 4-year college, or become an artisan contractor. Anybody in my neighborhood or in my state that needs a plumber, wait a while and pay $250 for them to show up. You can make $100,000 a year as an artisan contractor. Second thing I'd say, and people are going to be irritated when I say this, but it's also true. The more you focus on the problem, the more of the problem you get. That's been my experience in life. I have been the victim of discrimination and racism. I have been the beneficiary of good people from every community coming to my rescue. My mentor that I oftentimes talk about is a guy named John Moniz, a Chick-fil-A operator. John taught me that by looking in the mirror and taking responsibility, my life would get better. He said, if you see the problems in the mirror, you've just uncovered the promise of your future. He said, if you see the obstacles in your own mirror, right behind the obstacles are opportunities. Today, we are teaching kids how to be victims. You never escape victimhood. It comes with the drug of despair.
You can either learn from your background and let it drag you down.
Exactly.
Make it push yourself up.
Rise up. And so, all across this nation, if we were equipping kids with a good education, which is a good foundation, our free market system works, which means we're creating millions of jobs in America, high-paying manufacturing jobs, high-paying jobs in innovation, and we should set our energy economy completely free. We should be energy independent as a nation, creating millions and millions of high-paying jobs. So, with that recipe, any kid from any zip code, no matter the color of your skin, can rise beyond their circumstances and achieve their version of the American dream.
Senator, I'm coming closer to your right here. Hold on.
I see you to my right now.
There we go.
Greeting from North Myrtle Beach.
Yes, sir.
After you become president, will you nominate your buddy, Troy Gowdy, to be the Attorney General to clean up that swamp?
Yes. Well, let me tell you what. After I become president, the first thing I'm going to do is fire Merrick Garland.
Amen.
Then I'm going to fire Christopher Wray. And Randy Weingartner over at the Department of Education if I don't close it first. So let me just say that Trey Gowdy is a wonderful friend of mine and would be a wonderful AG. I asked him about coming back to politics or government service. He says he cannot afford the alimony.
Senator, I'm right over here.
I have a daughter who's a pilot in the Navy.
God bless her.
And
God bless her.
Thank you. And last night I saw Senator Tuberville on TV, and I know he's holding up, the, I guess, the nominations for promotions. Yep. And because of the travel ban policy for abortions, or the travel policy. So my question is, I was more concerned about his comments about, the wokeness that has invaded the military and our preparedness to go up against China. So what would you change to make sure that we could defend our country?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for your question. Let me just say, before I answer your question, will all the veterans or anyone who happens to be here who's active duty, please raise your hands. Thank you all for providing to the rest of us who have not served the privilege of sleeping in a bed with freedom, peace, and liberty. Freedom, as we all know, ain't free. Comes at a very high price. And I will say that our military needs a single focus, a singular focus. Winning a war, then coming home. One comprehensive focus our military needs. In order to achieve that objective, we must make sure that they have the resources and the training to achieve that objective.
Senator, I'm right here, so I'm coming. I have a...
Let me finish the
Oh, I'm
this
sorry, I
decision
thought you were
for-
done. I apologize.
Once again, a Southern fella speaking.
Yeah, I know.
slowly.
I told you to pick it up.
Yes, you did. Yes. I can't hear you, Scott. You're in the way. Anyways, it is your barbecue. Let me say this as well, man, because this is really important. We are missing our recruitment goals in the Air Force and the Army, and I believe we're missing them in the Navy as well. I'm not sure. We're missing them because for the last couple of years, we have seen this focus shift from war fighting. It shifted to DEI and the environment and the gender issues and abortion issues. The socialization of the military is destructive to the core and the soul of our men and women who serve. We need to get back to the focus of lethality. We need a lethal fighting force focused on doing the job and coming home safe. And we cannot have brass, generals, and the DOD so splintered in their focus that it jeopardizes the mission and, frankly, the people who do the job.
I'd like to just follow up as a comment and then have my question. As the wife, mother, mother-in-law of many military, all military branches have been covered. One of the problems is the family. My daughter has just wrestled with the transfer. It is not good, and they're demoralized, and they really need to be uplifted.
Yes, ma'am. Well, your comment is a really important comment if you think about the fact that, to your point, which is a strong point, think about the family support system that's necessary for the highest suicide rate in almost any industry. 22 a day, our military folks committing suicide. So high. We not only need to take care by resourcing our DOD, active duty folks, we have a responsibility and obligation and a contract to make sure that our Veterans Affairs departments are prepared for the PTSD and the TBI that our men and women are dealing with. It's one of the ways and one of the reasons why I focused my attention on bringing telemedicine and virtual health care where folks who need the mental health assistance in the military and in once they become veterans, they can get it immediately.
But they can't right now. There's not enough medical there.
That's why we have to open up the VA system and allow folks to go to the hospital of their choice. Our veterans deserve to choose their hospital and go.
My question to you is, and those who know me from Rotary, every politician since I've been there who has come, I have asked the same question. What would you do to help and support?
You ready for the answer? I've supported a lot of legislation on term limits, number one. I will continue to do so. Number two, I have committed myself to term limits. I think we as elected officials should also lead by example. So many folks use the excuse, even when we sign on to the term limit legislation, well, gosh, we can't get it passed in Congress. Well, it's hard to get it passed in Congress. But what we can do is limit our own terms. This is my last term in the Senate. Win, lose, or draw. I certainly hope to be your next president of the United States. Thank you all very much. I'll give you time for that one too. But either way, this is not a full-time job. This is an opportunity to fulfill a mission of public service and then to return to work. My reputation will go up and my income will too. I mean, literally, this is public service. We should all believe in term limits, and it's one of the reasons why I told my state that this was my last run before I ran, so that they could have a strong, clear fact that Tim Scott is not on the ballot for the United States Senate in 2028.
Senator, I'm right here, straight ahead, right here.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator,
Yes,
for
sir.
being here. Roger Stevenson from Stratham.
Roger.
I learned of a couple of examples in South Carolina of local people protecting their communities using federal tools. One is a grant to build a lithium hydroxide manufacturing plant that will create 300 high-paying jobs in South Carolina. And the other is a Republican governor has applied in South Carolina, has applied for and received a $3 million grant for a carbon pollution reduction program and a climate resilience program. So I guess my question is, what are your clean energy and climate positions that will convince me that those same tools will be available here in New Hampshire that we need to thrive?
Well, I'll talk to my governor about the tools that you just named, especially the grant that he received. But one of the things I wish we would fully appreciate as a nation as we think about our environment and how to protect it even more. One of the beauties of living in the South is that when you fly in, you see thousands upon thousands upon thousands of trees. It's undeniable we do a really good job of protecting our environment. When I was the chairman of a local county, one of the largest counties in South Carolina, Charleston, I started the first Greenbelt Bank back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. That provided the ability to preserve your land by going into a Greenbelt Bank and getting a write-off in order to conserve the land. Though there are programs that have been effective, as a nation, we have cut our footprint, our carbon footprint, by half in the last 25 years. Part of the problems that we're seeing is if you actually want to do the best things for the global environment, create the jobs in America, not in India, not in China, and not in Africa. Bring jobs back to our nation where we have a strong, clear success track at producing what we need at a lower carbon footprint. As President of the United States, I would continue to encourage the acceleration of development of our jobs that we need here in our country, and by doing so, we will be lowering the global footprint because we're creating it here at home. One of the things that I think is quite fascinating, the longer you go into the environmental conversation, the more you realize that whether it's China, wind comes back in 14 to 17 days. They're building every other week or so, at one point, a new coal-fired plant. In Africa, they're burning dung and wood as energy. One of the reasons why we should create a strong, healthy energy economy here at home is because exporting our energy is really good for the environment. Nuclear energy is another alternative that we should spend a lot of time seeing how effective it really is in reducing our carbon footprint and how safe it has been over the last 50 years.
Having the ambulance go by reminds me that if you are feeling like you need some water,
Take some?
just please raise your hand and we'll have some of our runners bring you some, okay? Do you need a water? Yeah, okay. So I have a question right here, Senator. Yep. Senator.
Quick question, Senator. I probably don't even need that, but please, you're going to term limit out and think about another job because we don't want to lose you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
And I'm a big term limit guy, but we don't want to lose you.
I appreciate that. I'll be your president, though, sir, if I can get your vote. I'll take it right now, sir. Yes, sir.
You got it.
Thank you, sir.
In the 60s, Khrushchev banged his shoe on the table at the UN and said, "We will destroy you from within."
Yes.
The press, the universities. My children went to private Catholic schools. I went to public schools. It was all right back then, but it wasn't when my kids were going. You mentioned the, let's have some plumbers and some electricians as opposed to how do we stop this? 40% of the children being born in this country are single parents. It is going, now you can't even send your child to elementary school without some crazy union teacher teaching her that that building's purple, not red.
Yes, sir.
How do we stop that, Senator? That is the scariest thing in my life.
Well, thank you for the really important question. Education is really the future of this nation without any question. One of the things I've said very often, and it's part of my Empowered Parents plan, is focusing on getting back to the fundamentals. Fundamentals include history. Only 14% of kids in America understand history at their grade level. 14%. I don't know if it's 14% have an appreciation for civics in schools today. We are, Og said in his cartoon, we have met the enemy and he's me, or something like that. It's the same concept. One of the challenges that we have to face is that we have to get back to the fundamentals in education. We cannot afford to have a focus anywhere else. And if we do that, I think we'll have our kids better equipped. But there are problems that the government doesn't fix. The government doesn't fix single-parent households. The government doesn't fix poverty. The government doesn't create jobs. They're terrible at all three things. We have to tell the American people the truth. There are limits that come from the federal government, and we should act like it. That's why when we cut taxes in 2018, I wrote the domestic side of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, that we lowered taxes and gave the American people back $4,400 on average of their resources. They had more control over their lives. I think part of the challenge that we have is we have to get back to allowing communities to make their own decisions. And I would love to make the tax code more fair. I would love to make sure that when a young lady is pregnant, that the child tax credit starts when she's pregnant and moves forward. I want to make sure that our tax code doesn't have marriage penalties embedded into it. I want to make sure that we have more encouragement, more incentives that we can embed into our system to encourage and promote family. However, the real answer starts at home, and it starts at communities. And we are putting Band-Aids on cancer. We've got to ask people, encourage people to be responsible citizens and recognizing through civics and history, the course of history proves that 300 million people across the world lost their lives to communism. Free markets flourish, and we redefine poverty around the world. Two choices. Ours works, and everything else has failed.
Senator, I'm behind the cameras over here. To your, right here we go. Thank you.
Senator, I saw you a number of years ago when you spoke at Christians United for Israel Washington Summit, and I wanted to thank you for supporting Israel.
Absolutely.
How would you deter a nuclear Iran?
Well, everything Joe Biden and Obama have tried to do the exact opposite. Number one. I'm a big believer in Psalms 122:6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and those who do will prosper, number one. Number two, I would say standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel, making sure that they have all the resources and weapons that they need is incredibly important. Number three, we provide about $3.7 to $5 billion, depending on which resource you're counting, into the assistance that we provide for Israel. We should do that, maybe even a little bit more. We also should understand that the relationship that we have with Israel is a dialogue and not a monologue. It's not we're just giving to them. We give back incredible technology. Tel Aviv is one of the strongest places for technology in the world today. So standing toe-to-toe, shoulder-to-shoulder, back-to-back with Israel will be a part of my administration. And I would simply say this as well. President Biden, before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, was asking the Russians to negotiate with the Iranians on our behalf. The JCPOA that you're familiar with, that President Obama passed, gave a breakout period for a nuclear weapon at the expiration of the JCPOA. The agreement between, anyone not know what the JCPOA is? JCPOA is basically the deal that we had in order to prevent a nuclear Iran. It expired, and then they wanted to go back into it. The bad news is that even before it expired, that the ballistic missile weapon testing had already occurred. So they weren't abiding by it, but they also were not allowing the inspectors to have the quick inspections without notification. So it was a disaster. I think what you've seen is an acceleration of the advanced centrifuges being developed faster. I think we have to put ourselves and Israel in the strongest position to slow that down, cut it off, and prevent it from happening.
Senator, I'm still right here.
I see you, Scott.
Here's the ugly question. I apologize. I would love to see you get elected, but you will not get elected. No Republican will get elected unless you remove the issue of abortion from the Republican platform. Every woman I talk to says that they will never vote for Republican because they believe that Republicans are anti-abortion 100%.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm going to assume that's the question. I am pro-life without any question. Have been, will be, undeniable. I will say that my position has been consistent, and it has been that I believe that a 15-week limit on the federal level is necessary to stop the radical left from having abortions on demand up until the day of birth. 72% of Americans agree with a 15-week limit. Europe, our very liberal friends, have a 14-week limit, and only a handful of countries, including North Korea and China, are in the same position that we are on the issue of abortion. So I believe, not all of us will agree, but I believe the 15-week limit is a position that I would fight for every single day of my administration. I would do so. But I also believe that winning the hearts and minds of the American people would probably take the entire 4 years for me to get a 15-week limit passed into Congress.
Senator, I'm over here now, right to your right.
Yep, there you are.
Senator, first, thanks for coming. I have an issue dear to my heart. I recently retired from a city just north of here. I did 41.5 years full-time on the police force, 22 as chief. We don't have an issue here in New Hampshire. But how? Thank you. What are you going to do with the red states the blue states that have a mess with the police departments? You know, they're trying to get rid of them, and you know the deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's been communities all across the country. We've seen over 100 departments eliminate their police departments. Think about that. We've seen in big blue cities the devastation of crime wreaking havoc on the poorest, most vulnerable communities in the country. African Americans across the country, by and large, 81% want the same level of policing or more policing. The narratives are inconsistent with reality. And the folks who fought against in Minneapolis, the fund and close the department of the police department, were the African American communities. And so what we have here is a place that actually unifies America in support of law enforcement. One of the things I've done as the chief negotiator in the Senate for Republicans is make sure that the first thing we must do in order to have more folks wanting to spend 41 years in law enforcement. And a half. My bad. And a half. We have to protect your qualified immunity. You understand the importance of qualified immunity. Qualified immunity says when an officer is running into harm's way and makes a split-second decision, they don't lose their house and their pension and their family. That's just wrong. Second thing we have to do is increase the federal funding that's available. The weight of my bills would have increased funding for our law enforcement agencies on a local level by over 400% increase. It's one of the reasons why I became the first non-Floridian to win the Florida Sheriff's Association Legislator of the Year just last year. As well as a major county sheriff's legislator of the year for my work on law enforcement reform, because I brought them to the table and we wrote legislation based on their recommendations. Having an elected official write police reform without talking to police is stupid. I'm looking for a politically correct word for it. Maybe dumb, but whatever it is, I'm never going to have it. So if we're going to provide the resources and restore the dignity and respect for our law enforcement agencies, that will help tremendously with recruiting. And then I have other plans that over time would allow more of our folks who get a college degree, want to go into law enforcement, to have their loans over time reduced by their public service in areas of need.
Senator, I'm to your right. Why don't you grab a drink of water for a minute? I don't want you passing out, okay?
Oh, I'm not going to pass out. If I do, don't catch me. Whatever you do, let me fall.
Okay.
I'm a big guy.
So just a cleanup note here. So please pick up your trash. I want to thank Rick Wickstrom's here. Rick, where'd you go? This is his place. He's in the back shaking. He donates this to us to let him lose it. So please pick it up, pick up the mess. Really, but not for him, we wouldn't be able to do this. As you know, Gail and I pay for this ourselves, and we want to make sure that we treat the property right. And Mr. and Mrs. Philbrick allowed us to park down in the field down there. And so thank you. And our chief of police, as you know, has been very in the bank, and so it's a team effort. So thank you, Rick, and thank you to your team as well. We have about 25 more minutes. Is that okay, Senator? Okay. So I see your hands. I have prepaid people that already raised their hands. So, yeah.
This young man has been sitting here waiting for you to come up with a microphone.
Yeah, I know. She's gonna, there's a line, dude. Okay, I'll be there.
Next, by the way.
I'll be there. Trust me. I see everybody.
He has a good peripheral
Hi,
vision.
Senator Scott. I want to thank you very much for your work with the enterprise zones and your sensible police reform efforts.
Thank you.
That focus on right things. I also wanted, and I want to thank you for your mention in your discussing about the evils of the illegal immigration. You also touched on the sex slavery that is promoted with this trade.
Yes.
Trafficking of people. I've always thought that Republicans need to do more to highlight. We pick up nearly 50 bodies a month, either rotting in the desert or washing up on our shores. We have thousands of people that are dying en route as well, and we have all kinds of people. And so we have to stop this flow of misery. What do we do? What can we do to shut down that narrative of the left that we're somehow doing good by all these people, emptying half of their villages of the people, separating families, etc. They just seem to have this narrative that we're doing good. We're not doing good for Americans. We're not doing good for the immigrants.
Well, I wish, as I did about 3 weeks ago, we had the folks on the radical left go visit our border. Spend some time in Yuma, Arizona, where it's 113 degrees just 3 weeks ago. And watch and listen to the sheriff, who has a conversation about finding dozens of bodies on the other side of the border. Talk to him about the devastation and the absolute stress on the hospital systems and the infrastructure. Let the folks who think they have a sign around the world that says America's border is open, that devastation, because of the weakness of this administration, is fueling a humanitarian crisis. And then they blame the other side, which would be our side. It's unconscionable what is happening to people who want to come to our country illegally, particularly the women. Devastating and preventable. Closing our southern border by finishing the wall, using the technology, are two very important keys. And then making sure that we restore the asylum policy that requires people to seek asylum with a country that is contiguous with the country that you're leaving, and the remain in Mexico policy that we had previously. Those are pieces of the pie that actually work and is effective. We have to stem the flow of traffic, and then we should restore Title 42. COVID is over, but there is a healthcare crisis on our border. It's called fentanyl. And so reinstating something like Title 42 for the fentanyl crisis, absolutely essential to make sure we don't see a 50% increase in illegal traffic across our southern border.
Senator, right here.
Question on climate change catastrophe. I suggest that it's not a catastrophe. It's going to be very slow, and I wonder what you would do about the Biden administration, who has spent $6 trillion that will be totally wasted and wants to shut down our entire hydrocarbon production and force certain industries, automotive, whatever, to be government-land industries, essentially destroying the whole nation for no reason. If we actually shut the fossil fuel production in the United States down 100% tomorrow, a recent scientific study said that will have reduced in 100 years the temperature by 0.2 degrees.
Yeah. Well, all that we see that President Biden is doing, we should do exactly the opposite on the environment. Think about the Inflation Reduction Act that added more credits, green energy credits, at the expense of common sense. Think about the fact that we provided up to $7,500 tax credits to people making $800,000 a year, paid for, subsidized by the average income of this country is $57,000. It's completely illogical. And then when you do the homework on extracting the rare earth minerals from the earth, the environmental impact is worse in that process. So this is not a real conversation about purely protecting the environment. It's about control and power and having the government pick winners and losers. It is bad for our nation. It's bad for our future, and it's bad for the environment. There was a great article a few months ago in the Wall Street Journal. The chairman of Toyota, pretty well-known. Anybody heard of Toyota besides me? Yes. You and I have. Man, let me talk to you for a second. We're going to have a conversation. You're the only person that heard of Toyota. What's your name, ma'am? That's okay. We're going to talk anyway. Linda? Linda? Yes. Linda. There's a guy named... Hey, good to meet you, Linda. Thank you, man. So, Linda, it's good to be here. There was a guy named Mr. Toyota. Spells his name with a D. Yeah, he happens to be the chairman of Toyota. He concludes that the EV versus the hybrid, one EV is more dangerous to the environment than 9 hybrids. And he's almost run out of his own company because there's this environmental wing that wants to punish anyone who says anything inconsistent with their philosophy, no matter the science. It's unbelievable. Exactly. So the truth is that if you want to have the most effective tools in the tool kit, so to speak, you want to make sure that we develop all of our energy resources, including oil and gas. When you take oil and gas, coal, we have more energy resources than any other place on the planet.
We can buy from Russia.
Well, we can, yeah. Part of the problem buying from Russia, we saw 600,000 barrels. We saw what happened there. So, yes, sir.
Senator, right here.
Hi, Deb Brown from Exeter. I think I want to have a statement first, and that is my fear that the Republican candidates running can't get the word out because our media is so slanted. I want to say I've seen Scott and I've seen Governor Sununu on Fox News, and I watch the other stations, and they're articulate, and they're educated, and they're such great representations for the party. And I told you when you came in, 48 years a Democrat, changed my party today. What, and you did a great job on The View, putting them on their place. But what do you feel you can do, or all the other candidates can do, to get to the rest of the country that I feel is deaf, or not getting the message, or just getting the same message or the propaganda?
Well, there's no doubt that there is a real challenge with the media getting out any common sense conservative plans without their bias being woven into the story. I've seen that very consistent. I won't say any, that's not right. Consistently a major problem. One of the things that we have to do, particularly those of us who believe in conservative principles, we have to go where we are not invited. We can't trust someone to deliver our message for us. We have to do it ourselves. We also have to develop new tools for communicating. The good news is many Americans, and heading towards the majority of Americans, are getting their information not from one of the major outlets. That's good news. And so we need to make sure that we've been working on projects called DTC, direct to consumer. I want my message to end up in your place, somewhere, right straight to you. Because I do have a concern that when I'm talking about the fact that it was the GOP that reduced unemployment to the lowest level in the history of the country for African Americans, for Hispanics, for Asians, a 70-year low for women, a 50-year low for the majority population, it's like crickets. No one knew that the GOP did that. When I say that in 2018, I worked really hard to provide, with a lot of help from the Republican Party, more resources to historically black colleges and universities than any other time in American history, no one knows about it. When I go into communities that don't consistently vote for us and have a conversation about the Opportunity Zone legislation that I created that brought $50 billion into the poorest parts of America, thank you. And not a single dollar was a federal dollar. They were all private dollars motivated through capital gains tax incentives to do the work that the government will never get done. They never knew it was Republicans that did that work. There is a stronghold stopping our common sense conservative principles from reaching the destination of people who desperately are looking for help. We are the great opportunity party, and we have to work a little harder, a little longer to make sure our message and our success reaches every corridor of America.
Senator, we have two more questions, and then, so here's how it's going to work. We have plenty of food, hot dogs, watermelon. Please take it away.
I'll take a hot dog with a little mustard, please.
You got
Thank
it.
you very much.
All yours, sir. And what we'd like you to do, please remember, pick up your stuff. We're going to take two more questions. Then we're going to just hang up here for a little bit. Come on up, say hi, picture, whatever. And then, yeah. So just a little thing. Monday we're having Chris Christie, 6 to 8. And on Wednesday we're having RFK Jr., 6 to 8. So you're more than welcome to come.
Hi there, my name's Adam, and I'm one of those people that you spoke about in the trade.
Yes, sir.
I've been doing it for 40 years. I work for the mill industry in Manchester, New Hampshire. And people go to school now and are spending $100,000 to go to school and not applying that. I myself work for a company, and I work 60 hours a week to make my living. And I was just wondering if there's any incentive to get kids into the trades, because now they're trying to pay for college. I don't know, because we do need more trades.
We do, 100%. So the answer is yes. As President of the United States, I would sign legislation that I've created over the last several years that would provide apprenticeship programs and incentives and tax credits for more employers to hire more folks so that they have the resources necessary to train them on the job. One of the ways for us to do so. I would also make sure that the Pell Grant that helps colleges pay for kids, why not have a Pell Grant for an 18-week program? You save a ton of money, and the kid gets the education they want. You don't need to go to college to be eligible for a Pell Grant, but why not? If we need a welder or a plumber or an electrician, why not make the Pell Grant eligible for that training program so that they can start to do the work? Why not have apprenticeship programs where that they can go to work and have the incentive to do the work while the employer has the incentive to hire them while they're being trained? There are simple, practical ways that doesn't cost a fortune for us to help people realize their full potential the way they want it done.
Senator, last question.
Good evening, Senator Hugh Lee from Rye, New Hampshire. Over time, there's been great discussion about the viability of Social Security.
Yes, sir.
As you may know, Social Security is funded by a tax on income starting from $1, currently up to $160,000. As you indicated earlier, the average income in America is $57,000. And those people making $57,000 are paying 6.2% tax on every dollar they earn. Someone making over $160,000 pays the 6.2% tax only up to $160,000. Then it's free ride from there on up. Would you consider eliminating that cap at which currently is $160,000, but it's adjusted for inflation, so that people making over $160,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 would continue to pay the 6.2% tax?
Good question, sir. Thank you. One of the things I have not done and do not look forward to doing is having a tax increase in any way, shape, or form. Second thing I would say is that it is really important for us to protect Social Security. The most effective way for us to protect Social Security is for us to reduce federal government spending overall. We are working on, in 2023, we are working on a post-pandemic spending plan when we should go back to a pre-pandemic spending level. If we went back to our pre-pandemic spending level, we would shave $5 trillion off our long-term debt. We grew our economy in the first quarter of this year at 1%. If we were to use my Made in America plan to create 10 million jobs and grow our economy at 5%, we would add trillions of dollars of new economic activity, billions of dollars to our treasury, with the ability to reshore and to secure our Social Security and our Medicare expenditures for years to come. I do believe that if we had a combination of spending cuts, a balanced budget amendment, and a strong economic growth, we would solve the problem.
Well, Senator, you don't forget the simple fact, sir, that you can always donate your money to the U.S. Treasury. They'll be happy to take it. Okay? I know when I was, I know for a fact when I served in Massachusetts that we had a provision that you could voluntarily give additional money, and Senator Warren didn't do it. No one else did either. So you can always do that. So first of all, I want to just say thank you, Senator. It's great to see you. You're a good man, a dear friend. Give it up to Senator Scott. Thank you very much. So just a little reminder, we have plenty of food left. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Do not rush out of here. Obviously, we have parked cars. We have people walking. Please be patient and respectful of each other and pick up your trash. I'm going to be up here with cameras. We're going to grab some cameras and we'll just grab some photos. Let the senator get a bite to eat first.
I don't like that at all. But I want to
Hey, Andy, whoever's working with the senator, can you get him some water or something to drink, please?
Monday is Christie, and then next Wednesday is RFK Jr. next Wednesday. We have a thing Wednesday night too, so it's like, you know, so you're sitting there, you're trying to figure out your schedule of things, and how do you get notices when this happens? Because, yeah, we get this stuff too. Okay, make sure you get that. Say if not, I was gonna say if you don't, I'm sure they'll put you on the list if you don't. But that's why I first found out about the first one of these. And it's funny because she works with Gail, and I said, hey, I didn't know about it. That's how I got it. Because we moved to New Hampshire last August, and then of course last fall I registered Republican and voted, and I guess that's got me on the list. I guess that's how that happened. I know. Hey, perks. Well, there's some perks if you join a party, I guess. Oh, yeah. Well, I leave work a little early, but Welcome back to New Hampshire. Appreciate it. I saw you in. Oh, thank you so much. I saw you in Salem. Yeah, Jerry Oaks. Yeah. Good luck.
Hey guys. Next, right here, turn it. Right here to your left. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. We got all the cameras going, so we're good. Camera.